The CIA filed a crimes report against me, saying that I had revealed classified information. I had no idea. My phones were tapped, my emails were being intercepted, and teams of FBI agents were following me. I get a call from, and she said, he was just ordered to shoot you in the next meeting. Well, I was working part-time at the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. At the time, it was the biggest union within the AFL-CIO. And I worked for this guy who I did not like or respect at all. He was a bully and just an all-around asshole. So in grad school, I'm taking this class called The Psychology of Leadership with an eminent psychiatrist named Dr. Gerald Post. And Dr. Post gave us an assignment where we had to shadow our bosses for a week and then write a psychological profile of our bosses. So I'm working for this asshole at the union, and I'm shadowing him for that week. And on Wednesday,
and he knew this was happening.
Yeah.
Okay
he didn't know that I was doing it for a psychological evaluation.
Oh, okay.
I told him I was doing it for a paper,
Right.
because I didn't want him to, freak out or it was true. It was
true, but misleading.
That's right. So on Wednesday, at the midpoint in the week, we got into an argument, a bad argument, and I called him a racist. Which he was. And he got so mad, his face got all red, and he balled up his fists and he set a stance. And I remember specifically thinking, damn it, I went too far this time.
All right.
So I put up my hands to protect myself from the inevitable blow. And he goes, my penis is bigger than yours. And I said, what? And he goes, my penis is bigger than yours. And I said, you're nuts, and I quit. And I walked out. I went back to my apartment, wrote my paper, and it wasn't just, John recounting a story.
Right.
This was like a serious academic paper with multiple citations, and I'm using, the DSM, and
it ends with my penis is bigger than yours.
And I said he's a sociopath with psychopathic and possibly violent tendencies. That was the bottom line. Passing the paper.
You didn't put the.
I told the whole story.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I told the whole story. I tried to make it as clinical as I could, but I told the story. So a week later, I get the paper back from Dr. Post, and he gave me an A. And in the margin, he wrote this long thing. He said, if you have not already done so, I urge you to quit this job. Please see me after class. So I went up to him after class. I said, Dr. Post, you wanted to see me? And he says, come down to my office. We were on like the 6th floor, and I think his office was on like the 3rd floor. So I go down there, and he says, close the door. So I closed the door, and he said, listen, I'm not really a professor here. I'm a CIA officer undercover as a professor here. And I'm looking for people who might fit into the CIA's culture. I think you would fit into the CIA's culture. Would you like to be a CIA officer? The truth was, I was getting married in 6 weeks, and I had no job. I had no prospects for a job. And I wanted to see the world, and I wanted to go into public service, and I said, sure. Why not? And one thing led to the other, to the other, to the other, and I joined the CIA.
Did you also get married?
I got married.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
My wife absolutely hated that I was at the CIA.
Why?
She was a ballet teacher. And, like I'd come home from work and she would say, how was your day? I'd say, great. What'd you do? Nothing. Who'd you talk to? Nobody. And then I'd come home sometimes like wearing a disguise. She screamed and picked up the phone and called 911 one time because I didn't have time to change out of my disguise.
Right.
And she thought I was just, a burglar that was going to do something to her.
Right.
So that didn't work out.
That marriage?
That marriage. I ended up going overseas. I switched from analysis to counterterrorism operations halfway through my career. And she hated that I was even just in the CIA, even though it was just analysis. So when I switched to counterterrorism ops, and, there are multiple guns involved and crazy training, and then we go overseas, it just wasn't. I got a call one night at 11 o'clock at night, and this guy says to me, he didn't literally say this. I can't tell you what he said, but what he said was akin to the rain in Spain falls mainly in the plains. And I'm like, mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy. And we both hung up. And I said, I got to go. She goes, what do you mean you got to go? It's 11 o'clock at night. I said, I got to go. So that triggered a 3-hour surveillance detection route, which then led me to a meeting in the parking lot of a closed business from 2 to 4 a.m. And then another 2-hour surveillance detection route back home so that I could take a shower, shave, get dressed, and go do my day job at the American Embassy. Well, part of that meeting was me sitting in a garbage dumpster waiting for another guy to drive by and throw a bag of documents in. So I get home at 6 a.m. And she's like, what's her name?
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. And I said to her, do I smell like I've been with a woman?
All right.
Like, seriously? I said, you got to stop, Joanne. You got to stop. I was working. You know I was working. Yeah, well, we'll see about that, And we ended up getting divorced, I don't know, 18 months later, I guess it was.
Where were you living at that time?
Athens.
Okay. The other thing is, I thought so you said you were an analyst at first. For how many years were you an analyst?
7.5 years.
Oh, geez, that was a huge jump. So 7.5 years, and then you moved, and okay.
I was going nuts with the boredom.
Right.
It was Iraq, 24 hours a day, Iraq. And, Bill Clinton was president at the time, and I'm like, well, clearly this administration's not serious about Iraq.
Right.
Right? I got to do something different. Otherwise, I'm going to be here after 30 years still talking about Iraq. So there's an internal classified job board in the CIA computer system, and this job popped up. And it was for a counterterrorism operations officer in Athens. And it said that the successful candidate will speak either Greek or Arabic. And as it turned out, I was the only person in the entire CIA that spoke both Greek and Arabic. So I went down to the guy that was in charge of hiring, a recently returned, very senior station chief. And I introduced myself and I said, listen, I don't have any operational experience whatsoever, nothing, but I'm fluent in both Greek and Arabic. And he says, you've got to be kidding me. I said, no, seriously. I saw the listing. And he said, okay, listen, I want you to take a couple of operational tests, which I aced. But he said, it is a lot easier and a lot cheaper for me to take a linguist and teach him operations than to take an operations officer and teach him how to speak Greek and Arabic.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So they gave me the job. I went through the training. It was something called the Operations Course Accelerated because I didn't need what they called at the time CIA 101. This is what this office does. This is what this other office does. I had already been in for 7.5 years.
Right.
I knew what all the offices did. So I went straight to the meat of the operational training. And it's a lot of weapons and driving and explosives and then the sort of day-to-day job of recruiting spies to steal secrets.
I'm still focused on the fact that you were the only person that out of the CIA that spoke both languages. Like you would think, I understand after 9/11.
That's the key right there.
There was a huge shift where they kind of sat back and they said all of our people look the same. Mm-hmm. They all have like we're not diversified enough to infiltrate or necessarily even understand these other cultures. We're just monitoring right now, but we're not really able to do it properly because we're not diversified enough. It's all 6 foot tall, blonde hair, blue eyed.
Exactly.
Men with degrees and with law degrees or whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's interesting. And I understand that after that they went and
after 9/11, literally everything changed. So before 9/11, it was about 200 applicants for every one job. After 9/11, it became and has stayed as about 2,500 applicants for every one job. But before 9/11, if you had a language, good on you. If it was high school French, German, Italian, Spanish, That's fine. After 9/11, very specifically, Arabic, Farsi, Dari, Pashto, Urdu, Sindhi, Punjabi, Tajik, Uzbek, Korean, Mandarin, and Russian. You got to have something. Because the other 2,499 people, they're going to ask if they have something.
Right. You get a divorce. Do you come back to the States after that?
I came back to the States after that and started dating a senior CIA officer and traveled a lot operationally, even before 9/11. My expertise is the Middle East. And so I spent most of my career in the Middle East and was doing things like training Middle Eastern intelligence services in counterterrorism operations. And then I'd go back to Athens to, do something, break into a house and plant a bug or whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
I was going to say, it seems like a lot of fun.
So, listen, when I was in Pakistan after 9/11, I worked so hard. I was chief of operations in Pakistan after 9/11. And I was there for, 6, 7 months. And I'm going to go back for a couple of months before returning to Pakistan for 3 more months. So I hadn't been on a vacation in years. And my then girlfriend, she later became my fiance and then my wife, we had planned this trip to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd never been. Everybody says it's so beautiful and great art scene and great restaurants. We want to go to Santa Fe. So it's like 4 hours before I leave for the airport. And I get this cable. And it says, don't come home. Instead, change your flight and go to this other country because we want you to lead a team. You're going to break into this guy's house and plant cameras all over. I was like, fuck. So I called her and I said, listen, I am so sorry. And she said, no.
Yeah, she's got to understand. She knows the deal.
Yeah, I saw the cable. Go do your break-in. We'll go to Santa Fe some other time. And so I went, I did the break-in, and then I went back to Pakistan again for 3 more months. And
never got the vacation.
Never got the vacation. What are you going to do?
I'm curious, can you go into any detail about I break into the house and I bug this house with cameras?
Yeah, I'll tell you one funny thing about that. So I meet up with Liaison, that country's intelligence service. It's a country of islands, so we have to take a boat to get to the island where this guy was a serious terrorism support guy, a money guy.
Right. I used to avoid looking at my bank account, not because I didn't care, but because I knew there was stuff in there that I didn't understand. Subscriptions I'd forgotten about, charges I didn't recognize. It just felt messy. Then I started using Rocket Money. And the first thing I noticed was how clear everything became. It pulled all my accounts into one place. I could actually see where my money was going. And I found subscriptions I didn't even remember signing up for. Stuff just sitting there charging me every single month. Rocket Money helped me track all of it and cancel the ones I didn't want with just a few taps. It's already helped people save over $880 million in canceled subscriptions. But what I like most is the control. You can set budgets, track your spending, and even get alerts before things get out of hand. It gives you a real picture of your money and helps you fix it. And once you see it clearly, it helps you make better decisions. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings faster. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/Cox. That's rocketmoney.com/Cox. rocketmoney.com/COX.
I bring what's called a locks and picks team with me. They're the lock pickers. Mm-hmm. They get the stethoscope and they're, listening to the tumblers. It's all very interesting to watch them do their thing. And so we get to this house and the locks and picks guy says, this is one of these German security doors. He goes, it's going to take me 2 weeks to get into this thing. They've got these steel bolts that come out into the, out of the door into the door jamb. It's a steel lined door. We can't break into this. I was like, doggone it, I flew halfway around the world for this. So we're all standing there like, now what are we going to do? Like, we've been ordered to do this.
You reach over and turn the handle.
I walked around the back of the house, and there's a $5 Yale lock on the back door.
Okay.
It's like, why would people do something like that?
Right.
So I come around, I go, guys, you got to see the back door. We go back there, they're like, you got to be kidding. So, bloop, we're in. We did our thing, locked it back up.
It reminds me of like a police officer's job. Like everybody thinks it's so cool and exciting and everything. It's like, no, it's 99% paperwork and pure
and waiting.
boredom.
Yeah.
And then it's 1% of absolute adrenaline-filled excitement. And then it's right back to, for every hour of excitement, there's 12 hours or 15 hours of paperwork.
Yeah, it's like hurry up and wait.
Right. But then when you look back over your career of 20 years, you can sit down for 4 hours straight and tell one amazing story after amazing story. And people are like, my God, you lived a life. You're
but
like,
all those stories were over the course of 15 years.
So it sounds great. It's like when you talk about flipping houses in real estate, you're like, I bought the house for $40,000. I put $10,000 in and I sold it for $200,000. You're like, oh my God.
I got to get a piece of that.
Yeah, that was 6 months. I didn't tell you about the guy that fell off the roof. I didn't tell you about the 3 air conditioners getting stolen, the kids throwing rocks through the windows. It sounds great. Lots of things sound great.
Yeah.
So what happens at that time? Has 9/11 happened yet?
No, so I get back from Athens in August of 2000. I start training these Middle Eastern services, and then I'm handling a couple of sensitive cases. I got a call. I got a call in the spring of 2001 from a buddy of mine who was a station chief in the Middle East, and he says to me, "Hey, could you do me a favor?" And I said, "Of course." He goes, "We've recruited a double agent who doesn't know that we know he's a double agent, working for one of our greatest enemies on the planet. He's been instructed to insist that he meets only with me, the chief." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "It's too dangerous for me to meet this guy. I have to live here. Can you come out here every month and pretend to be me and handle this guy?" I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun." I said, I'm bored."
They don't know what he looks like?
No, they don't know what he looks like. They were trying to draw him out. Like, they know that there's a station chief, a CIA station chief somewhere in the embassy. They don't know who among these, 20 people is the station chief. So
did he want you to wear a T-shirt that had a big target on it? I mean,
that's kind of what it comes down to.
That doesn't sound exciting at all.
No, it's exciting. I was an adrenaline junkie. I sitting in a cubicle in headquarters like this, it's not for me.
Yeah.
So
I'll pick that over. Can you please pretend to be someone that these guys definitely are trying to kill and want to kill?
So I fly out. I meet with a guy, and I said to him in our very first meeting, I said, "Listen, the fact that we're meeting is dangerous. Not for me. If we get caught, I'm going to get thrown out, and I don't care. If you get caught, you're going to get arrested because you're working for the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to go over something called a surveillance detection route." And I explained to him what it was. You drive here, you make a stop, you buy an apple, you go over here and you buy a newspaper, you go over there and pick up your dry cleaning. So I laid out a map of the city and I gave him a sample of, what you do. So I said, always leave 2 hours before our meeting, drive around, come to the meeting exactly on time. When you walk into the lobby, call me and I'll tell you what floor to come up to. And then you come up to that floor, I'd give him a big bear hug to just pat him down, really, for weapons. And then I'd say, wait here 5 minutes and then come up to room, 605, whatever. That way, if he brought people with him to kill me, I at least have a fighting chance in the elevator lobby. So we did this. We had our first meeting. And I said, now remember, you do a surveillance detection route back to your house, okay? Okay. Gave him an assignment. Rent a post office box. In case we lose contact, you can leave a message in the post office box. I'm going to check it twice a week, and then that'll trigger the emergency meeting. Okay. He goes directly from the hotel to the hostile embassy. and says, I just met the station chief. It's, this is his description. So I go directly back to the airport and then fly back to Washington. I had what at the time was called a tri-band phone. So it was a local number in that country, but it would ring anywhere that I was in the world. But you just dial it as a local number. Mm-hmm. Now every phone does that. But that back then, and this is 26 years ago, this was a big deal, 25 years ago. So we would set up our next meeting. It's called the Mad Minute. As soon as you walk in, I give you the bear hug, I pat you down, and I said, were you followed here? No. Have you had any problems since I met you last? No. Our next meeting is going to be a month from tonight at the Marriott. Okay. Just in case somebody busts in the door and, grabs you, and that way at least you've got the bona fides established. So the next month I fly out, same thing. The month after that I fly out, and he's given me bullshit information. So what I would normally do is finish the meeting, and he didn't know we had like 4 security guys in the lobby. We had a guy down at the end of the hall. Everybody's armed. I'm armed. And he's just going straight to that hostile embassy and reporting back on what we said or what I said in the meeting. So I go home and I get a call from NSA. And the woman says, are you handling this double agent case out in the Middle East? And I said, yeah. And she said, I got to tell you, he was just ordered to shoot you in the next meeting. I said, oh, please, this guy's afraid of his shadow. He's not going to shoot me. Then my boss comes busting out of his office. Oh, my God, I just got a call from NSA. I said, I know. They called me too. He said, we have to abort the operation. I said, absolutely not. I said, Doug, this guy is 25 years older than I am. He's 50 pounds overweight. He's afraid of his own shadow. He's not going to kill me in the next meeting. So I said, just hear me out. I have a couple of ideas. He convenes this panel. It's like the director of counterterrorism, the deputy director for operations, a whole bunch of people. I said, please, just listen to my idea. Let's do the next meeting at the Marriott, because every Marriott in the world looks exactly the same. And so you walk into a Marriott room and the bathroom's right there on the right or the left. We'll get an adjoining room so our liaison counterparts and our security guys can be in the next room. I'm going to prop the door open. He's going to call me from the lobby, and I'm going to say, instead of coming up to the 6th floor, I'm going to say, just come straight into room 425. I'll prop it open. Those latches. Yeah. I'll just open the latch so that the door's propped open. He's going to knock on the door. I say, come in. He comes in. I grab him. You guys bust in from the next room, and we take him. They're like, well, okay, but only if you wear a bulletproof vest. I said, fine. So I fly back out to the Middle East, and sure enough, our security guys are in the lobby. Well, the bad guys also had their security guys in the lobby. So it's 4 of our guys, 4 of their guys. They're all giving each other the stink eye. Everybody's armed. Like, who are all these people? The Marriott people are oblivious. Mm-hmm. So he calls as he's walking in the embassy. Into the lobby. And I said, come on up to room 425. So our security guys told me he left his house. He went straight to the hostile embassy, and straight from the hostile embassy to the Marriott. So I said, okay, he's loaded for bear. I'm ready to go.
Probably picked up the weapon.
Yeah, exactly. So he comes up to the room. He knocks on the door. I said, come in. He comes in. I come out of the bathroom. I grab him like in a bear hug, and I just slam him down onto the ground. And he's like, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So I'm sitting on him. Our guys and the liaison guys bust in from the next room. I wrestled the gun out of his hand. He was so scared. He never even actually got a grip on it. He was fumbling, trying to get it out of his waistband. But I got the gun from him. And I'm sitting on his chest. I have his arms pinned on the ground. And I said to him, do you really think I'm so fucking stupid that I didn't know that you came here to kill me today? Allahu Akbar. I said, do you think I'm such a fucking amateur that I didn't know from the very beginning that you were a double agent? I said, I'm offended. I did.
Right.
He's screaming, he's swearing. So one of the dirty little secrets of hotels is people die in them every day, right? So there's a standard operating procedure for when people die. You call an ambulance, they go to the back to the loading dock, you bring the gurney up to the room, you cover the body up in a sheet, you take it down the service elevator. So we gave him a quick shot of Demerol, knocked him out, put him on a gurney, covered him up like he was dead, took him down the service elevator, put him in an ambulance, and took him to the intelligence service headquarters.
His guys are still sitting in the lobby.
Yeah, and they start talking to each other, like, where is he? What's going on? Why is this taking so long? We haven't heard any shots. Something went wrong. Do you think he's flipped? Do you think he's dead? Did they kill him? Are they onto him? Psst. We were already, gone from the hotel. Finally, our security guys just leave. No reason to hang out there. So when he wakes up like 4 hours later, he's tied to a chair in the intelligence service headquarters. And I said, look, this can be easy or it can be terrible. It's up to you. Where are the weapons? That's all I want to know. He was the founder of a terrorist group in that country that was causing the government there some significant problems. We needed to nip this shit in the bud. I said, where are the weapons? He goes, fuck you. I said, again, this can be easy or it can be terrible.
Yeah, that was the wrong answer.
Where are the weapons? I fuck your mother, he says. I'm like, okay. My liaison counterparts just start wailing on him. And then they finish. Where are the weapons? He's all like, I fuck your sister. I'm like, okay. So.
Yeah, I don't get that. In the end, you're gonna talk.
You're gonna talk.
You can talk you can miss some teeth and have some broken bones and talk, or you can be completely intact and have a hamburger and talk. We can talk over hamburgers, or we can talk while you're spitting blood out.
Bring a cup of coffee. We can sit
Nobody's
like gentlemen.
Nobody doesn't not talk.
Exactly. So I said to my counterparts, I said, listen, why don't we have a locks and picks team on standby? Let's just go into his house and just see if the weapons are in there. They said, can't do it. He's got a maid. She never leaves the house. She's there now. I said, okay, then let's say we declare a gas leak in the neighborhood and we evacuate everybody. He lived in a little cul-de-sac with 6 houses. We evacuate everybody in the cul-de-sac. They said, can't do that. We don't have natural gas lines here. We have propane. We use propane. I'm like, my God, you guys, do I have to think of everything? Bring an 18-wheeler into the cul-de-sac, which we did. I turn this giant wheel. The propane gushes onto the ground. I close the giant wheel. We call the equivalent of 911. I think it was 115. And the fire department comes to hose down the propane, and they declare an environmental emergency, and they evacuate everybody from the houses. I'm like, seriously, was that hard? So we go into the house. And he's got this safe, like a 6-foot-high,
like a gun safe,
but deeper.
Right.
So the locks and picks guys, they have their stethoscopes and they're listening. We're all being very quiet, and they open the safe, and it's empty, except for one thing. There was a hand-drawn map, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you. There's an X on the map, and it says, the weapons are here with an arrow. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So we all get in these 2 Land Rovers and we start driving out into the desert. So it's like, you go 1,500 meters and then you make a left at the palm tree. And then you go another 500 meters and you make a right at the giant rock.
This is a treasure map, right?
Yeah, it was a treasure map. So we go out there. And we find a bunker, like a dugout bunker, with every weapon, every explosive and landmine and bullet that this entire terrorist group had. We completely put them out of business. The group doesn't exist anymore. And then, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, I ran into one of the guys that was on my team at the mall in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And I'm like, whatever happened to that dude we took down?
I was just wondering, what happened to the guy? There comes a point in life when you realize you need to be more intentional about what you're eating every day. That's actually why I started using Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers partners with local American farms and ranchers to deliver 100% American meat straight to your door. No imports, no guessing where it came from, just real, high-quality meat you can trust. And I'll be honest, once I started getting their deliveries, it just made everything easier. I always have good steaks, chicken, whatever I need ready to go. No last-minute grocery runs, no cutting corners. And they just launched custom boxes. So now, instead of getting a pre-built box, you can pick exactly what you want. If you eat more steak, load it up with steaks. More chicken, do that. It's built around what you actually use. And right now, when you start your plan, you'll get a choice of free meat that will be included with every order at no additional cost. And with my code INSIDE, you'll get $25 off your first order. That's free meat with every order and $25 off your first order with my code INSIDE when you start your plan with GoodRanchers.com. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered.
And he goes, buddy, he's still in prison. And I said, after all these years? And he said, oh, yeah.
In the other country?
In the other country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, all right.
I told him, this can be easy or it can be terrible. Mm-hmm. He wanted terrible. So here we are 25 years later and he's still in prison. Well, then 9/11 hits.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
I go back.
I forgot what the question was, 9/11.
Yeah.
So then 9/11.
I go back. I'm back for, I don't know, a few months. And
9/11 hit at that time. Where were you when 9/11?
I was at headquarters. Funny thing, I say this all the time. That morning, Cofer Black, who was the head of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, and I had a meeting scheduled with Condoleezza Rice. She was the National Security Advisor. It was for the silliest reason. There's this little-known government agency called the GPO, the Government Printing Office, and they were going to print a volume of declassified cables called Foreign Policy of the United States, 1949 to 1967, Greece, Turkey, Cyprus. Literally nobody on earth is going to read this thing.
Right.
Right? But 3 of the declassified cables contained the names of CIA sources from the 50s who happened to be still alive at the time. We have a law in this country that if a CIA source's name is outed, we have to offer them American citizenship to protect them. Now, they're all going to say no. They're like 100 years old.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter anymore. But we thought it would be easier and cheaper to go to Condi Rice and ask her to remove the 3 cables from this giant volume that nobody's ever going to read. Right. Nobody's ever going to miss them. Nobody's ever going to know. So I get a call at my desk from the driver.
Can't you just redact it?
No, they have to be declassified.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. There's a mandatory declassification law.
No, I'm saying you can't just redact their names?
Well, it's already been printed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the driver calls and says, I'm at the West Entrance ready to take you to the White House. So I go up to Cover's office, and those were the days before you could watch TV on your computer. So his secretary had a little teeny tiny, like 4-inch screen TV on her desk, and the World Trade Center's on fire. I said, what happened in World Trade Center? And she said, plane hit it. And I go, that happened once before. In 1931, a bomber flew into the Empire State Building. But it was like really foggy and it was heavily raining that day. It's so crystal clear today. How can you not see that you're flying into the World Trade Center? And then as soon as I said it, the second plane hit.
Right.
And then she turns to me and she says, did you see that or did I imagine it? And then all hell broke loose from then.
So you were in the White House when 9/11 happened?
I was still at the CIA. We hadn't gotten into the car yet. But I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Everybody ran up to the front. The office is gigantic. It holds a couple of hundred people. So there are private offices all the way around the perimeter, and then just this mass of cubicles. We called it a cubicle farm. So there were so many people, we had to actually name the aisles. There was like Bin Laden Boulevard, Hezbollah Highway, you know, so you could say, oh, I work just off the intersection of, you know, whatever and whatever. So hundreds of people were all just standing there in silence watching. There were TVs hanging down from the ceiling. Like one was on CNN, one was on BBC, one was on Canal Plus, one was on the Russian channel, the Chinese channel, and they're all showing exactly the same thing. Kofer stands up on his desk, on the secretary's desk, and silence. And he says, today we're at war. We're all going to have to do our parts. Not all of us are going to come home. If you want to leave now, no one will think less of you. Nobody budged.
Right.
So finally, one of the cops, CIA has its own police force called the Special Protective Service, SPS. And the cop came and said, everybody evacuate. You got to go. Everybody evacuate. Nobody budged. He came back about 40 minutes later. If you don't evacuate, you will be arrested, which they actually have the authority to do. So we all evacuated. I was able to get halfway home. I lived 7 miles from the agency.
By this point, had the Pentagon been hit?
Yeah, and the Pentagon was hit.
So you guys, so it's not.
Yeah, no, it's clear what's happening.
Yeah.
And we had been predicting it for months, right? And the White House, they just wouldn't listen. It was all China, China, China. It's like, no, it's not China, actually. It's these guys. So I had to abandon my car on the George Washington Parkway and just walk the last 3.5 miles to my apartment. And my girlfriend met me at my place. We went up to the roof and watched the Pentagon burn. But anyway, I get to the Teddy Roosevelt Bridge, and I see the Deputy National Security Advisor crossing the bridge with this mass of people. He's got no shoes. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? This is the guy that's supposed to be running the government in this crisis. And he ran from the White House without shoes. Like, this is the situation we're in.
Yeah.
So we watched the Pentagon burn for a little while. And then we went out and we tried to give blood, but the lines were so long. It's, it's a 24-hour line to give blood. I said to her, this is ridiculous. We got to get back to work. So we walked back to my car, 3.5 miles. I drove across the median and turned around and I went back to CIA, and then I stayed there for the next 4 days. I just slept under my desk.
So what were the marching orders at that point? Like, how long did it take them to kind of rally together and say, okay, and were you were 100% sure when it happened? You already knew this is what we've been predicting. This is what happened. This is who's behind it. So,
this guy standing behind me, he whispers, this has to be Hezbollah, right? And I go, are you retarded? No, it's not Hezbollah. Like, do you not read the papers? Even if you're not reading the classified traffic. Like, everybody in America knew this was Al-Qaeda. They kept telling us they were going to do it. Like, goading us into, trying to do something to stop them. So it took a good 24 hours before we were able to snap out of it. Funny thing was that my Arabic was excellent. And I kept volunteering, like every day. I'm volunteering. You got to send me to Afghanistan. You got to send me to Afghanistan, right? Because I heard this rumor they're putting a team together. You got to send me to Afghanistan. Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of this like bona fide American hero named Billy Wah. Billy lived here in Florida. Billy had 17 Purple Hearts, which was one short of the record for the United States. Billy and I were doing this cool thing in the Middle East together just the week before 9/11. I just got back to headquarters on September 9th, and then Billy disappears. So, like 6 weeks later, I see him in the hall. I said, Billy, where you been? And he goes, been in Afghanistan. I said, really? What are you doing in Afghanistan? He goes, I've been killing people. What do you think I've been doing? And that's when I finally realized Well, that's why they haven't taken me. They're not interrogating anybody. They don't need translators. They need killers.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I got so frustrated. I went to the deputy director's office and I said, he was a friend of mine. I said, listen, if you don't send me to Afghanistan right now, I am walking straight to Exxon with my Arabic and I am not looking back. He's like, will you relax? Okay. All right. Can you go to Pakistan? I said, yes. When? He said, tomorrow. I said, yes. What do you want me to do? I want you to be chief of counterterrorism ops. I said, okay. I called my girlfriend. I said, I got to go to Pakistan tomorrow. She said, okay, how long? I said, I don't know. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? I don't know. She said, okay, I'll meet you at your place. I'll help you pack. So we met up at my place. I packed a suitcase. The next morning, I went into headquarters just to say goodbye because I'm thinking, is this it? I don't know. So I go to say goodbye to everybody, getting big bear hugs. My boss gives me a hug, and he leans in and he says, kill them all. And I said, really, John? We're already at that point? And he says, kill every one of them. So I went out to the airport. I went up to the United counter. The guy says, where are you going? I said, I put my passport on the counter. I said, Islamabad, Pakistan. And he looks at me and goes, better thee than me.
Right.
I said, just hope I come back. And then I went.
How long were you there?
6 months. And
and what's happening there?
All hell was breaking loose. We were bombing the shit out of Tora Bora in Afghanistan. And so the bombing was so relentless that literally all of Al-Qaeda was running across the mountains into Pakistan. So on my first day, I arrived at 4 a.m. I had to be at the embassy at 7. I begged the driver, said, please, I'm begging you, just let me sleep an extra hour, pick me up at 8. So at 8, he picks me up, and I go into the embassy to meet my chief. And he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up with a standard operating procedure for taking down a terrorist safe house. I said, okay. So I go back to my office. I have a legal pad. And I'm like, okay. So if I'm going to take down a terrorist safe house, what would I do? And I wrote 0200 at the top of the paper, right? I would want it to be dark. I would want everybody to be asleep, my targets to be asleep. And then I thought, I need guns, ammunition, battering rams, bulletproof vests, night vision goggles, ammunition, secure communications, scrambled walkie-talkies. So I go to galls.com, this police supply house in Kentucky, with my CIA credit card, and I spent $50,000. And a week later, it all arrives in the diplomatic pouch. And I started putting together the teams. I went over to Pakistani Liaison, ISI, the Pakistani Intelligence Service, and I had already gone over there to introduce myself, but we had, equal numbers of CIA, FBI, ISI. And then after the first week, I got a tip that there's this safe house and there's some Al-Qaeda guys in it. So I said, okay, guys, let's give it a try, see what happens. 0200, we go over there, we bust down the door, 2 18-year-old kids, and they both burst into tears. So we cuff them. One of them asked me if he can call his mom. And I'm like, no, you can't call your mom. And I said to this FBI friend of mine, I go, this is Al-Qaeda. These children, this is what we're so afraid of. Like, this was a revelation for me. So we took them to the safe house, we interrogated them, and then we put them in the Rawalpindi jail. Rawalpindi is a massive city that's attached to Islamabad. It's the headquarters of the Pakistani military.
But those kids are cogs in a wheel.
Sure
they're just tools. Like, they're not running. They're not the person. They're not the puppet master. They're just the puppet.
They're
right?
the grunts.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, in our minds, we had built these guys up into being supermen. They just took down both World Trade Center towers and shut down the Pentagon for all intents and purposes. I just expected a little bit more of a fight. And there was nothing.
But that's what you get. You're 18, 19 years
That's
old.
it.
You're stupid. You don't know anything. You're idealistic.
And that's exactly what it was.
I mean, that's what our troops are, 18, 19, 20, because they don't ask a lot of questions.
No,
and
they just do as they're told.
Right.
So I get a call.
You're broke, and this is...
And they're giving you $500 a month. That's a king's ransom.
Right.
So I get a call from a friendly Arab intelligence service, this brigadier general, and he says to me, I understand that you're the man when it comes to safe houses. And I said,
I've got a vast experience taking down the one
I go,
thing.
Yeah, I'm the man.
With the two 18-year-olds.
So he said, I have an address to pass to you. I said, why don't you come over to the embassy? We'll have lunch. So he comes over to the embassy. We sit and have lunch. This guy was one of these, he was not wearing his military uniform, which struck me as kind of funny. He was wearing a beautiful suit.
But where are you?
I'm in Islamabad.
Does he want to walk around in his suit? I mean, in his uniform?
He's supposed to because because he's a brigadier general and he's in a military position in his embassy. But
how safe is it to do that, though?
Well, I mean, you're in the backseat of an armored car. You've got a driver. Okay. You and the driver both have weapons. It's as safe as it's going to be in Islamabad, Pakistan. It's not like you're on vacation there or anything.
Right.
So I realized very quickly he's afraid. That's why he doesn't want to do this himself. Just give it to the Americans. He's afraid. That's why he's not wearing his uniform. So I take the address. I say thank you. I call the FBI. I call ISI. We gather for the raid that night. We bust down the door. And this one was serious. This one, we caught a member of EIJ, Egyptian Islamic Jihad. They were the ones that killed Anwar Sadat back in 1981. And they merged with Al-Qaeda in like 1995. Ayman al-Zawahiri was the founder. He became bin Laden's deputy. So this one was kind of a big deal. This was a good tip.
Right.
And then we did a couple nights where we had 2 raids in the same night. And those were successful. So my boss calls me into the office and he said, we've got these officers all the way up and down the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. And they're just not having success catching these guys as they're taking what we call the rat lines, through the valleys. And they're successfully getting into Pakistan and they're hiding. What do you think we should do? I said, I don't think we need all these guys on the border. I don't think we need anybody on the border because they're not going to catch anybody. And the villagers are hostile. Let's pull everybody off the border. We'll let Al-Qaeda come into the country because we know they're going to make a mistake, which they always did. They get to Pakistan. They go into their Gmail account, which gives us a physical location. We bust down the door. We grab everybody.
Yeah, so, you've already had success doing that at this point.
Yeah. And so now they're giving us their locations because they won't stay off the phone. So that was successful. And then we got a tip that Abu Zubaydah was in the country. We believed Abu Zubaydah was the number 3 at the time.
Right.
And so we set out to. It's a very long story. You've heard it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But
he was further down the line, but
yeah.
he was
still a bad guy.
Yes.
But not the number 3 in Al-Qaeda. But we caught him, and then he just went right back to the one-off raids, 1, 2, 3 a week. I returned to headquarters in May of 2002. And a colleague in the Counterterrorism Center approached me when I was in the cafeteria and very nonchalantly he said, do you want to be certified in the use of enhanced interrogation techniques? I said, what is that? I never heard that before. He goes, we're going to get rough with these guys. I said, well, what's that mean? He described these techniques. I said, buddy, that sounds like a torture program.
Right.
He goes, it's not a torture program. The Justice Department approved it and the president signed it. We're going to do it. Are you in or out? I go, you know what? Give me an hour. I need to think about this. I went up to the 7th floor of the agency, the executive floor. And there was a very, very, very senior officer up there for whom I had worked in the Middle East 10 years earlier. And so I knocked on the door. No appointment. I said, I need some advice. I was just asked if I wanted to be trained in these enhanced interrogation techniques. What do you think of that? And he says, First, let's call a spade a spade. This is a torture program. They can call it whatever euphemism they want, but this is a torture program. And torture is a slippery slope. And you know these guys. He said they're cowboys. They're going to kill somebody. They're going to beat somebody to death. Then there's going to be a congressional investigation.
I was just going to say, I think you're going to be talking in front of Congress in
exactly.
3 years from now.
And then there's going to be a Justice Department investigation, and then somebody's going to go to prison. You want to go to prison? And I said, no, I don't want to go to prison. I say all the time, as it turned out, I was the only one who went to prison. But I went back downstairs. I said, this is a torture program. I want no part of it. So that was when I first started to realize that we took 9/11 so deeply personally that the law meant nothing anymore. You know, if you want to torture people, you and I can agree to disagree. But if you want to torture people, you got to change the law because the law is clear. You can't do that.
Right.
So I started thinking, maybe it's time to move on in life. And I stuck it out for another year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half. And I resigned. And then, you know, even after I resigned, I kept waiting for somebody to go public and say, this is happening. This torture thing is happening. There were rumors everywhere. All the networks were talking about it. All the NGOs were talking about it, but nobody would actually come out and confirm it. Finally, in December of 2007, now I've been out of the agency for about 3.5 years. Brian Ross calls me from ABC News, and he says that he has a source who said that I tortured Abu Zubaydah. I said, absolutely untrue. I was the only person who was kind to Abu Zubaydah. Well, he says, you're welcome to come on the show and defend yourself. I didn't know that that was a reporter's trick. I had never spoken to a reporter before.
Right.
In the meantime, George W. Bush is looking right into the camera, and he's lying to us. We do not torture, he goes. I'm like, he's a friggin' liar. So in the end, I was able to deduce that Brian Ross's source was at the White House and that they were going to try to pin this torture program on me because I was the only one who said no to it, and they were getting outed. And so I called Brian and I said, I'll give you your interview. And I decided in the days leading up to the interview that whatever he asked me, I was just going to tell the truth and let the cards fall. And boy, did they fall. So the CIA filed a crimes report against me with the Justice Department, saying that I had revealed classified information. The FBI investigated me for a year, from December of 2007 to December of 2008, and then closed the case. They sent my attorneys a declination letter declining to prosecute.
Nice.
Yeah.
That almost never happens.
No,
Usually they might drop it, but they don't tell you. They just let you lose a lot of sleep.
So my wife and I actually went out that night and celebrated. We were so happy.
So, but that's what you'd married the girlfriend.
Yeah, I had married the girlfriend from the agency. And 3 weeks later, Barack Obama becomes president. He names John Brennan first as CIA director, but he couldn't make it through the process. So he becomes the deputy national security advisor. John and I always hated each other. So, and he's one of the creators of the torture program. He secretly asks Eric Holder, the attorney general, to secretly reopen the case against me. I had no idea that for the next 3 years, my phones were tapped, my emails were being intercepted, and teams of FBI agents were following me everywhere I went. So finally, in January of 2012, they arrest me. They charge me with 5 felonies, 3 counts of espionage, 1 count of making a false statement. We were never really clear as to exactly what the false statement was supposed to have been. And 1 count of violating the Intelligence Identities Protection Act of 1981. I was the only person ever charged with that crime.
And how did and this is all stemming from the one interview?
The interview with ABC News.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the espionage portion? Like what did you say that was government secrets?
I said that the CIA was torturing its prisoners. I said that torture was official U.S. government policy. And I said that the policy had been personally approved by the president himself.
Okay.
This is a death penalty charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's espionage? Like, I don't understand. But
this was what the Obama administration did. Of course that's not espionage. You know it. I know it. It's not espionage. But they redefined espionage. My case set a precedent. The judge in my case, Judge Leonie Brinkema, said that she was not going to respect precedents set in other federal district courts, that she was going to redefine espionage as, very simply, providing national defense information to any person not entitled to receive it. And my lawyer got up.
Yeah, how do you determine who's not allowed to see it?
Who determines what national defense information is?
Right.
It's never been defined. The law doesn't even mention classified information because the classification system hadn't been invented yet when the law was passed in 1917. So my lawyers got up and said, Your Honor, are you saying that a person can accidentally commit espionage? And she said, that's exactly what I'm saying. And then she says to me, Mr. Kiriakou, you either did it or you didn't do it. And I think you did it. And I think you need to talk about a plea.
Well, that's not a good sign at all.
No.
Not with a death penalty, not with a death penalty on the table.
They offered me 45 years. I said, I'm not doing 45 minutes. So my lawyers are like, we're going to fight this. We're going to go to trial. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to make these motions. We blocked off 3 days for 150 motions. We go into court and she says, let me make this easy for everybody. I'm denying all 150 of these motions. Right? And they were to declassify 150 documents that I needed to defend myself.
To present a case, yeah.
And she goes, plea, Mr. Kiriakou. Like, what kind of fair trial is that?
Yeah. Yeah, she's already determined you're guilty.
Oh, yeah. So we went 10 months like that with this hanging over my head 45 years. And then after 10 months...
But you're out on bond.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are paid attorneys from you.
Oh, boy, are they?
I mean,
11 of them.
This is what? Are these... are they taking it on pro bono, or you just
half of them were.
Okay.
The Washington Post called my attorneys legal titans. These were the guys who had represented Monica Lewinsky and Aldrich Ames and Attorney General John Mitchell during Watergate. And these guys are giants who are on the front page of the Post and the New York Times all the time.
But they've wiped you out financially.
Wiped me out.
Wiped out. Okay.
I gave them everything I had and ran up a bill of another $1,150,000. So 10 months pass with this hanging over my head like an anvil. And DOJ comes back and they said, take a plea to an espionage charge, 10 years. I said, absolutely not. That was on a Monday. On Wednesday, they said 8 years. And I said, I'm not doing it. And then on Friday, they came back and said, 5 years. We're not going any lower. I said, I'll go to trial. I'll go to trial and I'll testify on my own behalf. And I might accidentally talk about some of the hideous crimes against humanity and war crimes that I witnessed in 15 years at the CIA. Then they come back the next week. Well, first, my lead attorney, legendary figure named Plato Kacharis, he's dead now. But he said, I've been an attorney in this city for 52 years. And this is the first time I've seen them come down in their offers. Usually they offer you 10, you say no, the next offer's 15. Then the next offer's 20. I said, why are they coming down in time? And without missing a beat, he says, because they have a shit case and they know it's shit, and that's why we're going to trial. I'm like, okay, let's go to trial. So they come back and they say 3.5 years, best and final. So
shit, I was thinking 5 was good.
So my wife and I stayed up all night long. Now remember, nobody in American history has ever been charged with the Intelligence Identities Protection Act. So there's no precedent. We stayed up all night. We found 2 articles in the Harvard Law Review that talk about this case, they're saying this law is unconstitutional. It should never have been passed, but nobody's been charged with it. So there's nobody to have standing to challenge it in court.
Right.
But you have to challenge it post-conviction, right? Yeah. So
no thanks.
So at 7:00 that morning, I emailed the attorneys and I said, I'm turning it down. I want to go to trial. And Plato, one of the other attorneys emails me back and says, put on a pot of coffee. We're coming to the house. So they arrive at the house. Plato was the first one in. Plato was a mean old man. And he says to me, he gets right in my face. He goes, you stupid son of a bitch, take the fucking deal. I said, you're the one who told me to go to trial. You're the one who said they have a shit case. He goes, I said that just to keep your morale up. So there were 3 lead attorneys. The second one, Bob Trout, one of the loveliest men you'll meet. Beautiful suits, Southern gentleman. He pulls me aside and he says, if you were my own brother, I would ask you, I would beg you to take the deal. And then Mark McDougall, he was the head of white-collar defense at Aiken, Gump & Strauss, the biggest law firm in the world. He says to me, and he's the guy that I liked and respected the most. He says to me, angrily, you know what your problem is? Your problem is you think this is about justice, and it's not about justice. It's about mitigating damage. Take the deal. So I said, Mark, if I don't take the deal and I'm convicted, what am I realistically looking at here? He says 12 to 18 years. Take the fucking deal. So they called DOJ and they said 30 months, he does 23. And they said, all right. And so instead of 45 years, I got 23 months. And Mark said one other thing. He said, this is the right thing to do. He goes, this could be a blip in your life, or it could be the defining event of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Make it the blip.
Yeah, you get 20 years and you can tell everybody in prison for 20 years, oh, you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, exactly. How'd that work out for you?
Was that like, I don't know. There's lots of things that change. But I mean, was that binding on the judge, or was it all
that's a great question.
A low-end recommendation?
That's a great question. So the recommendation...
Because I don't like this judge.
No, at all.
Yeah.
So they dropped all 3 of the espionage charges. I hadn't committed espionage. They dropped the false statements charge. I didn't make any false statement.
Right.
So the IIPA, the Intelligence Identities Protection Act, the guideline was like just under 5 years. It was like 4 years and 4 months or something like that. And every national security reporter in America is in the courtroom on the day of my sentencing. So my attorneys negotiated something called an 11C1C plea. An 11C1C plea is an agreement on time between the prosecution and the defense. The agreement is written in stone. So the judge only has the choice of accepting the plea or rejecting the plea, and you go to trial and start from scratch. And the trial's going to go for another year then.
Yeah.
So she says, I have been a judge since 1986. And this is the first time I have ever seen an 11C1C plea. She goes, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. She goes, Mr. Kiriakou, if I could, I would give you 10 years. Well, the truth is, she could. All she had to do was reject the plea.
Yeah.
But she was performing for the cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
So she says, I hereby find you guilty and I sentence you to 30 months in prison, 23 months to be served at the, Bureau of Prisons, whatever of their choice. So my lawyers say, Your Honor, we ask that you send Mr. Kiriakou, recommend the minimum security work camp at Loretto. And she says, any objection? And DOJ is like, that we don't object.
Yeah.
So I have to report February 27th of 2013. I go up there, I go to the camp, I knock on the door. tailed by a documentary film crew and 4 of my lawyers and my cousin and his son. And they said, oh, you have to go across the street to the prison. They process you. They bring you back over here. So I go over to the prison. I say, I'm John Kiriakou. I'm here to turn myself in. They put me through the X-ray, and then they start leading me around to the back of the actual prison. I said, no, I'm supposed to be at the camp across the street. And the guy goes, ha, not according to my paperwork, you're not.
All right.
I was like, shit. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. You'll end up in solitary. I didn't say a word.
Yeah. Yeah, the judge can recommend whatever, but the Bureau of Prisons...
they tell you, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, they're the ones running the Bureau of Prisons.
And as it turned out, we learned through the Freedom of Information Act that the CIA was livid that they had agreed on this deal. They wanted me to die in there. Mm. They were livid. 23 months? It's like a joke. So...
I bet it didn't feel like a joke to you.
It didn't. In fact...
23 months seems like a lifetime at that time to have to go into a prison that you feel like you don't deserve to be there.
I was walking around the basketball court. There was so much snow that they closed the yard. We could just walk around the basketball court. I was walking around with the number 3 in the Bonanno family. We lived across the hall from each other, and we became good friends. And he said, how much time do you have anyway? I said, 23 months. Feels like 23 years. And he says, let me give you some advice. When somebody asks you how much time you have, you tell them 5 years. Because if somebody hears that you have a sentence that's so light, like 23 months, they're going to kick your ass.
Yeah, they get upset.
Yeah.
They get jealous. I mean, you really see that in prison because people are, they're serving these, Buck Rogers, dates and they're upset and they get, it's childish, but, you're not dealing with the
reality.
The best people.
No, that was good advice.
So what did you? So you didn't go to the camp. You went to what? Did you go to a low?
I went to a low.
Okay.
It took me about 4 days to get access to a phone, and I called Mark McDougall, the attorney that I liked, and I mean I liked all of them, but I liked Mark the most. We connected the best, and I said, Mark, hey, they put me in the actual prison, like with the mafia dons and the files. What do I do? And he goes, oh my God, well we could file an appeal, but it'll be 2 years before we get a date. You'll be home by then. He said, buddy, I'm sorry. You're going to have to tough it out. And then I thought, you know what? I'm trained for this. I've lived in way worse places than Loretto, Pennsylvania.
Right.
I'm going to run this place by the time I'm done. And I just set out to be the biggest asshole I could possibly be.
To what? The Bureau of Prisons?
Yeah.
Or just the inmates? I was going to say, like...
The inmates, I wrote this book that won 2 literary awards. I wrote it in longhand in prison called Doing Time Like a Spy, How the CIA Taught Me to Survive and Thrive in Prison.
Nice.
And I won the Penn First Amendment Award with the Penn Faulkner, the Pulitzer, and the Edgar Allan Poe. It's one of the big 4, right?
Okay.
And I won the Forward Review's Memoir of the Year. So... I take these 20 life lessons that I learned at the CIA, and I show how I applied them in prison. Well, some of them were like a joke. Admit nothing, deny everything, make counter accusations. And I'll give you an example. The whites didn't control any of the TVs. The Hispanics had half the TVs, and the blacks had half the TVs. So you watch whatever they, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. I'm going to read a book instead of watch that. But anyway. These 2 guys got into a scrap over what to watch one day. Well, I'm watching the Steelers game, right? So these guys start duking it out. It's like 1.5 feet away from me. Well, I'm busy. I'm watching the game. I don't. This fight isn't about me. Well, of course, as soon as the fight breaks out, everybody just bolts and they run back to their cells. Well, I'm watching the game. Mm-hmm. So I'm just sitting there while these dudes are scrapping it out. Next thing I know, the red light comes on, and then Kiriakou, lieutenant's office, immediately.
Right. This is why everybody bolts, by the way, Colby, because the CO, sometimes the COs will come in and they'll grab anybody around there, and they end up going to the shoe.
Yeah.
Too, but like I had nothing to do with it. Yeah, but you were there, and we'll throw you in the shoe, keep you there for a week or two. You'll tell us what happened because I didn't do anything. I was there. This guy punched so and so, and I didn't do anything. I want to go back to my cell. But that's why everybody immediately takes off. They don't gather around and
No way.
Yeah, like in the movies, no,
Everybody
they bolt.
makes a circle around the guys fighting.
That doesn't
never
happen.
happens.
It's like, oh fuck,
never.
I'm done. I got to go back to my cell.
So I'm just sitting there watching the game. So I get on the lieutenant's office, and they're like, "Why don't you tell us about the fight?" I go, "What fight?" The fight in Central 1. I go, "There was a fight?" I don't know. I was watching the Steelers game. "Oh, you're going to be smart guy now." I go, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I didn't see any fight. We saw you on the cameras sitting there in the middle of the fight."
Then what do you need to talk to me about? You saw it on the cameras.
I said, "And your question is, what was the fight about?" I go, "What, you want me to do your job for you now too?" "Kiriakou, you're this close to the shoe. Tell us about the fight." I go, "You know what? Maybe it was you that was fighting, huh? Maybe it was you that was on the cameras. How the fuck am I supposed to know? I didn't see anything on the cameras. Maybe you're the one that started up the fight." He goes, "Get the fuck out of my office." And I go, "Exactly. Fucking asshole." And I went back, and they're like, "Oh my God, you survived?" I said, "These guys are so stupid. They don't even know what to say back to you when you tell them that you can't believe what your lying eyes have seen." You know? There was another one. I said in the book, always let others do your dirty work. Okay? Simple.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a serial killer in my pod. We called him Truck. He had been a long-distance truck driver. These are the days before DNA testing. He would drive all the way across the country in an 18-wheeler, pick up prostitutes at roadside.
What do they call them? Chicken heads? And
Yeah.
pick up one, and nobody misses her.
No. And he would kill them. He would strangle them and throw them out of the side of the truck. So he got 40 years. And for whatever reason, I'll never understand why this guy constantly sought my approval. "Hey, John, the Steelers are on at 1 o'clock. I saved you a seat." "Thanks, Truck." "Hey, John, I know you listen to classic rock. There's a new station at 1600 AM. "Okay, thanks, Truck." So I'm sitting there one day. Well, there's this other guy that I didn't like at all. We had an empty bed in our cell, and he wanted to move in. Well, no pedophiles, no rats. Okay, so he says, "I want to move into your cell. I heard it's a good cell." I said, "What's your crime?" "Murder for hire." I said, "I don't think I like that very much more than being a pedophile or a rat." I said, "What are the circumstances?" He goes, "I have a gambling problem, and I owed the mob $100,000, and I couldn't pay it. So I took out a life insurance policy on my business partner, and I hired a hitman to kill him, and I got caught." And I go, "And then what? Like, how are you not in a maximum?" "Well, I got 20. I said, "How'd you get 20? "Well," I said, "you ratted out the hitman."
Cooperated against the hitman,
Yeah.
of course.
Which he did. And I said, "Nope, you can't move in here. No pedophiles, no rats." So I'm sitting watching the Steelers with Truck.
Uh-huh.
And this guy had this oddly elongated head, the murder for hire guy.
Okay.
We called him Cat in the Hat because that's what his head looked like. So it was like a birth defect, right? There are a lot of fucked up people in prisons, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there with Truck watching the game, and this guy, Cat in the Hat, he's like 2 feet away from me. He's right here at the email terminal. He doesn't see that I'm sitting 2 feet behind him. And he says, "Hey, did you hear? Kiriakou got called to the lieutenant's office today." He goes, "That guy's a fucking rat. He went down there to rat us out." The truth is that Jake Tapper had driven up from CNN to the prison to interview me that day, and I had to go down and sign the waiver to do the interview.
Okay.
So I'm just sitting there, and Truck says, "Did you hear that guy? He just called you a rat." I saw my opportunity. And I go, "An hour ago, I heard him call you a..." And without saying a single word, Truck got up and beat him almost to death. They had to land a helicopter in the yard to life flight this asshole to Pittsburgh to save his life. Truck got 5 more years added onto his sentence. So I was done with him.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Done with him. And then 6 weeks later, Cat in the Hat gets out of the hospital, comes back. Everybody had told him what I had done.
Right.
So he comes up to me. He's got his head down. He goes, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry that I called you a rat, and I'll never do it again. And I go, hey, look at me. I said, if I ever hear my name cross your lips ever again, you're dead, and you'll never see it coming. He's, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I became like legendary. And the mob guys are like, shit, you are a psychopath. I said, no, that's the issue. You're a psychopath. That's why I get you guys to do my dirty work for me.
So you wrote this book in prison. You have all the rules.
Yep.
You didn't publish it in prison?
No.
Okay.
I had a little bit of a problem because the cops would shake me down, and if I had pages written, they would tear them up.
Really?
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was every day I would write, and again, it's longhand. It's friggin' hard to write 120,000 words in longhand, right?
Yeah.
So every day I'd write, and then I would put it in an envelope, I would mark it legal mail, and I'd send it to my lawyers.
Okay.
And they just held them for me. And so when I got out, I hired some college student just to type the whole thing, and then I started the edit. Now, there were whole chapters that I wrote twice just because I forgot I had written it, right? It took me a year and a half to write it longhand. I started off with a story. There was this guy. There was this friggin' Italian Ponzi scheme guy, degenerate gambler, not connected. So he's like, he owes every bookie in the prison money, and he's borrowing from this guy to pay that guy just so he doesn't get his legs broken. And the whole thing's going to collapse. But at the same time, he had been in People magazine a couple times because he was dating an A-list Oscar-winning star. She broke up with him when he was arrested for this Ponzi scheme. Yeah. And he's always talking about his yacht in the Mediterranean and his villa in outside of Rome, and everybody's going to be invited to the villa, and we're going to take a cruise around here. Oh, can I borrow $10? Can I have a couple of Macs? So I said to one of the Italians, the one who became my best friend and is still like a brother to me, I said, I'm going to fuck this guy up. I said, I cannot listen to these stories anymore.
You're a real tough guy in the low.
In a low, yeah.
In the low, right.
Because I knew I could get away with it. So he goes, are you crazy? He goes, they're going to send you this shoe for months, and then they're going to put you in a medium. Yeah. And then what are you going to do? I said, I would never be so crude as to physically fuck him up.
Right. I'm smarter than that.
Give me some credit.
Right.
So one of the guys in my cell, he was a Mexican guy who worked in the laundry. And I said, Jose, can you get me a laundry bag? And he said, sure. And I gave him a Mac, and he stole a laundry bag, gave me the laundry bag. And then there was another guy, Jorge. I said, Jorge, are you going home soon? He goes, yeah, I got my merry-go-round. You remember the merry-go-rounds?
Yeah. You get everybody to sign off just before you leave. Yeah,
it's not for any reason other than to keep you occupied that last day so you don't settle scores. So I said, can I borrow your merry-go-round? So he gives it to me. I make a photocopy. I white out his name and his number, and I type in the Italian guy's name and number. And I wait till 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I put the laundry bag and the merry-go-round on his bed. So he comes in. He goes, hey, guys. We're like, hey, man, how you doing? Good. How are you? Yeah, we're good. He goes over to his bed. He goes, I go, what? He goes, I'm going home. I said, what are you talking about? He says, it's the merry-go-round. I won my appeal. I go, what? Nobody wins their appeal. He holds up the laundry bag and the merry-go-round. He says, I won. I'm going home. I have to call my lawyer. He runs to the phones. Well, even fancy New York lawyers go home by 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. He goes to the unit manager. He's long gone. The counselor left at like 2 o'clock and had somebody else clock him out. So there's nobody around. So my Italian buddy says, hey, let us have a dinner for you. We got to have a dinner tomorrow night, Sunday night even better, the night before you leave.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. When you're not resting well, everything else feels harder. Your focus, your mood, even your recovery. GhostBed is here to help you fix that. They've spent decades perfecting how to build a bed that's comfortable, durable, and designed to actually help you rest. Every GhostBed mattress features premier materials, proven cooling technology, and their exclusive ProCore layer, a targeted support system that reinforces the center of the mattress where the body is heaviest. It helps keep your spine aligned and your back supported, so you can wake up ready for anything 2026 throws at you. Each mattress comes with a 101 night sleep trial and a 20 to 25 year warranty, so you can try it risk-free, knowing it's built to last. Shipping is fast and free. Most orders arrive in 2 to 5 days. GhostBed has great prices to begin with, up to 50% off comparable brands. And Inside True Crime listeners can get an extra 10% off site-wide for a limited time. Just go to ghostbed.com/Cox and use promo code Cox at checkout. That's ghostbed.com/Cox, promo code Cox. Upgrade your sleep with GhostBed, the makers of the coolest bed in the world. Some exclusions apply. See site for details.
He's like, okay. On Saturday, he gave all of his shit away.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's what happens. Is they give her their shoes, they give anything because they don't need any of this stuff. They don't need the radio. They don't need their MP3. They don't need nothing.
I took nothing home with me. Sunday night with this big bash, big party. The Italians, the way they ate, it was just like in Goodfellas. It was.
I've talked about.
I gained 35 pounds in 23 months.
Oh my God!
They were very, very good to me.
Yeah.
So Monday morning, we all walk him down to R&D, receiving and discharge. The rest of the story I got from the cop in R&D. So he goes in there, and the cop says, "Who are you?" And he says his name.
Did he go get everything signed off on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He went to every office.
So he's showing up. That's like an escape. That looks like an escape.
The cop says, "Turn around, you're under arrest."
Fucking
He
serious?
says, "For what?" "Attempted escape."
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. It was an escape attempt. Why, he didn't know it.
Yeah.
He bursts into tears. They cuff him. They take him to the SHU. And then they ended up sending him to Elkins. And he just did the rest of his.
That's ingenious.
So it was the actual boss of the Gambinos came up to me and he goes, "That was some sick shit." And I said, "I thought that guy would never shut his fucking mouth." And the Gambino guy says, "I'm not saying you didn't do us a favor. I'm just saying that was some sick shit."
You know what? You know the sovereign citizens?
Oh, boy, do I.
So there was a sovereign citizen that I was locked up with that he had, and I don't even know how he did that. You know, they incorporate their name, they do the whole thing. Somehow or another, he had filed something, and he got a federal judge to say that the Bureau of Prisons did not have jurisdiction over, and then he had his incorporated name. Now, what the federal judge probably thought he was saying was like over this corporation.
Right.
And so he gets this letter, but it's still his name. It's all in caps and, whatever. And he gets.
They're always big on the all caps.
Yeah. So he gets the piece of paper. This is a federal, this is a federal judge has written this letter. And so he's got this letter, packs up all of his bags.
Oh my God.
He was at the low. I met him in the medium. He told us the story. He goes to the low, right up to the gate, not to R&D. He brings his stuff up to the gate. The front. I don't know every prison, but they usually have a big gate.
Oh yeah.
But
it's out of bounds. You're not supposed to be up there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a red line around it.
Oh yeah.
He walks right up.
Wow.
And so like the lieutenant or somebody comes up and goes, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He's got his stuff in a couple of laundry bags. He's like, I need to be released. You need to release me. This judge just declared that you don't have any jurisdiction over me. I'm ready to go. And and they're delusional.
Sure.
And so he looks at me, he grabs the letter and reads it. He goes, okay. He holds that. He said, hold on. I think he calls the warden, whoever, assistant warden, whoever's in that, in the low at the time. They come out, walk over, takes the paper and reads it. And she goes, okay. Are you a sovereign citizen? And he goes, yes, I am. She goes, okay. All right. Got it. Folds it up and says, handcuff him, and cuffs him and brings him straight to the shoe where he spends 6 months in the shoe, and then they move him to the medium, and he had to check in every hour. He had to find a guard. So if you have escape charges, he had to go find a guard every hour and say, hey, and show him his ID, and then they would call him in to say, yeah, this went on for the whole I was in the medium for 3 years, but for the last year and a half, 2 years, he was every single hour he would check in, and he got a charge, and I was in there with a couple sovereign citizens that got charged with, they had made a new law where because the sovereign citizens they'll file like judgments and shit against judges and
liens. Yeah. And they'll try to take your house.
So you're like a judge, and you've got this sovereign citizen who's locked up trying to fucking put a lien against your house and foreclose on your house.
Yeah. Anyway, they do.
So they found out there's a law, they'd charge them. So they had a new law that they were so some of these sovereign citizens, they'd scoop up, re-indict them, bring them back to court, and they'd come back with 3 more years. And they're like, I can't believe it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you're here on tax evasion. You had 3 years. You just got yourself you were walking out the door in like a year. You just got another 3 years.
But that's it. They can't control themselves.
Right.
They really believe this crazy stuff.
I used to always tell them too, is I said, look, I no, you don't understand. The IRS code was never ratified by the. I get it.
The Ohio Indian Treaty of 1812. I'm like, please.
Yeah.
I can't.
And I used to always tell them, listen, let's say you are 100% right. These people have the manpower, the guns, and the prisons, and they say you're going to stay here, and you can spend the next 5 years of your sentence telling everybody how you shouldn't be in prison. But when you get out, you better pay your fucking taxes, bro.
That's right.
Like, stop thinking. It's kind of like what your lawyer said, which I absolutely agree. Is that you're thinking this is about justice?
It's not.
Like in whether it's whether it's espionage or you're a drug dealer, like I get it. Look, I love Law and Order.
Sure.
And I love when McCoy finds out.
I love that show.
McCoy finds out that they sentenced the wrong man, and they call the judge, and we're gonna rush over there and we're gonna get him out tonight. And they do, but
it's not real life.
Bro. It's not what they do.
It's not real life.
What they do is they go, huh. It's not his DNA. And they go, well, he must have had a partner. It must be his partner's DNA. He's guilty. What are you talking about, bro? You just spent the whole trial saying it was his semen. You said there was nobody but him. You said it was his footprint, his semen, his fingerprints. There was only him. And now the semen, you got the DNA and it doesn't match. And now you're just saying, well, that was his partner. You just went to trial saying he didn't have a partner. Like, it doesn't stop. It's just about winning. Yeah. It's just about winning.
That mitigating damage thing that he said, that was one of the most important and impactful things that anybody has ever said to me in my life. And I've repeated it. He actually teaches now. He's semi-retired. He teaches at Georgetown Law School. And I speak to his classes. And I tell that story.
When you were locked up, did you have a plan for getting out? Like, were you thinking to yourself, when I get out, I'm going to, write books for the rest. Like, what is your plan for the rest of your life? Like, because
so many of us think that when we finish our sentences, we can just step back into our lives again, and that's just not true. Yeah, it's not possible.
Right,
you're not the same person.
Did you know that though?
No,
because
a lot of guys.
Oh, okay, because I knew it. Like I knew because
you were more self-aware.
Right, I knew that. I had a lot more time to think.
Right.
I knew that when you looked on the internet, that it was devastating.
Yeah.
And so I was aware, and I would talk to these the other con men who were locked up, and they were always like, because and I know you don't know my story, but like one of many things I've done was one time I don't judge me.
No judgment.
One time I stole a guy's identity. And then I had his name legally changed you know, and I had a driver's license, passport, everything in his name, but I had it legally changed. But so people knew, like, you know, Cox had somebody's name changed. So a lot of the con men would come to me and be like,
how do you do this?
How did you have his name? How hard was it? I was like, it's $1,500 to a lawyer. It was nothing. It was a joke. I had like 2 people say that they'd known me as this person for 2 years. I said, both of the people that signed those papers, I said, knew me for 2 months. Like, I told them, I'm changing I had a reasonable reason to change the guy's name. I was living as Michael Eckert, and I wanted to change my last name to Michael Johnson. And I happened to had met a couple of people. I'd known them a month or two, and they knew me as Michael Eckert. I wasn't, of course. And I explained to them that I wanted to change my name because the guy that raised me was named Johnson. I don't even know this Eckert. I don't know my real dad, but I want to change it. And it's important for him and my mom. And I was wondering, you know, would you mind signing this affidavit saying you've known me, says you've known me for 2 years? And they're like, yeah, no problem. They sign it and get it notarized, whatever. We give it to the lawyer. I give him $1,500. And I think 20 days later, he calls me up and says, hey, here's your paperwork. You can go to the DMV, get your name changed. But I'd done that. So these guys would come to me and how hard is it? And they'd tell me, you know, because then there's like 30 articles on me or this or that. And you know, like they ran a Ponzi scheme. They ran a pump and dump, whatever. And then there's something called, not Ancestry. It's called Reputation, like .com.
Oh, yeah, Reputation.com. Yeah.
That will bury all the articles.
Will. Yes.
And they were like, I'm going to go to this and I'm that. And I used to always look at them and think, you sound like you're working on your next indictment.
Yeah, seriously.
Like you're just, you know, they're like, yeah, but I don't want this following me around. And I was like the only person in prisons. They were like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm leaning into it.
Oh, I wear mine on my sleeve.
Absolutely.
I've made a living from it.
That was my thing. I was like, I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to figure out a way to make a living being me. And they were like, well, what does that mean? I was like maybe, you know, and I didn't know I was going to give keynote speeches and I didn't really know about this. I knew I wanted to write books because I'd written, when you say writing out loud.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, you know what I would do? I would write it out. I would type it into core links.
Smart.
Into the draft.
Yeah.
And that way I could print it. We could edit it, print it, edit it, print it. And now you could only do so many words. And then I would put like chapter 1A because each chapter was like 5. You know, you could only fill it up so much, only so many characters. So I'd get like chapter 1A, B, C, D. And then I'd email it to someone who would take it and put it into Word. And then they'd mail it back and we could go over it again, make sure it was okay. And so I'm building a book. And then
that's smart.
Yeah, expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Right.
But so I just remember thinking I was going to figure out some way to just not run from this the rest of my life. But which made it harder on me, of course. But that's what I'm wondering is like, you're not stupid. You know, you had to know, like you didn't realize that the deck is just stacked against you.
I did not realize it. I just had convinced myself that enough people out there knew the truth of my case and my situation that I could step back into my life again. And from the outset, I was home a day, and Vice News came to the house, and we did this long interview, and then BBC asked me to do an interview. I was on this BBC crosstalk. It's like their version of 60 Minutes. And the guy's like, well, you don't seem sorry at all for your crime. You're not contrite. You haven't said that you regret doing it. I said, no. Yeah. I don't regret doing it. I would do it again tomorrow if I had the opportunity. I said, if you're looking for me to apologize, that's just not going to happen. So
who was harmed?
Exactly.
What am I sorry for again?
Yeah. So I got a job at a think tank, the oldest liberal think tank in Washington, the Institute for Policy Studies. And they said, you're going to have to raise your own salary. We don't have any money to pay you. So I had this constant GoFundMe, and I'm barely making like $18,000 a year. I said, there's got to be more than this. In the meantime, I got a call from the Sputnik news agency, the Russian news agency. Would you like to have your own radio show? I said, no, I don't want to work for the Russians. Thank you, though. But I couldn't find a job. I got turned down by Uber. They were like, we don't hire felons. I got turned down by the one where you do grocery shopping for people. We don't hire felons. So the Russians called me again, like 8 months later. We'd really like to offer you your own radio show.
What year is this, by the way?
This was 2017.
Okay.
So I said, well, I'm happy to come in for a conversation.
I said, what does it matter? It's your radio show. It's not like it's...
And I said that to them. I said, I want the freedom to say anything I want, to criticize anybody I want, including Vladimir Putin. They said, done. I said, put that in the contract? Done. And they did. And so I had a radio show for 7 years, which led to my own TV show, which led to a podcast, which led to, speaking engagements. And one thing led to the other. And it's taken me a little while, but now I'm, famous. I'm still talking about these human rights issues. My detractors are all either dead or retired or in a couple of cases under indictment. God bless Donald Trump for that. I can say that. And I came out on top.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, so it took a few years, but I mean, everything takes 2 or 3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Everything
like
does.
It's what is
everything.
it? I think it's I actually like the Jeff Bezos where he says I think it's Jeff Bezos. Most overnight successes take 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that yesterday. I said I'm an overnight success, and it only took me 18 years to get there.
So I wrote 5 books when I was locked up.
You wrote 5 books like that?
I had Well, 13 years. Well, what I got to do?
Oh my God!
And listen, I was ordering so many Freedom of Information Acts.
Oh my God! I did the same thing.
And they would come in, and so it was SIS would call me in. So SIS is calling me in saying, "You got a Freedom of Information Act from someone from John Boziak. He's an inmate here." I'm like, "Yeah. Oh, I need that." And he's like, this is his legal paperwork, and this is everything on him. I'm
freedom of information,
right? And I go, I'm writing a book on him, but once I got a couple guys in Rolling Stone magazine, and I got a book deal, then the SIS would be walking by me, and he'd go, "Hey Cox, come by SIS. We got a bunch of stuff for you." Because sometimes they wouldn't get it. Sometimes they come right to me. Sometimes the mailroom would find it and they give it to them. They go, "Hey, what is this? A book?" And I go, "Yeah." They go, "What's the book about?" And I go, "Okay, so listen what happened." And I tell them, "But this guy, boom, 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 boom." They'd be like, "That sounds like a good story, bro." And they give me this. So it got.
Oh, that's very cool.
Right. So, but I wrote all these books while I was there, and knew I wanted to do a podcast. So I got out. I was in the real quick. So I was in the halfway house, and a buddy of mine was like, "There's a guy that runs a podcast around where I live," and I was like, "Okay." And I was working for him. He's a childhood friend. Hired me at the gym he was owned, and he's like, you should go talk to him. He interviews this guy, which was Ben Mala. He's like, he interviews him. He's a real estate guy. He might want to talk to you. And I go, I just got out of fucking prison for bank fraud, for real estate related bank fraud. I go, he didn't want to talk to me. He's like, well, you said you want to start a podcast. Maybe you could talk to him. He goes, I can get you his email. So he gets me the email. I sent him an email. He called me back in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I said, "Hey, what's up?" And I said, "Oh, I appreciate you calling." He said, "Bro, that may be very well be the best email I've ever read in my life." I go, "Really?" He goes, "I get a lot of emails." I said, "Why?" He said, "Just the opening." And the opening was, "My name is Matthew Cox, and I'm a con man. I was recently released from federal prison." No, and I said I was in federal prison for bank fraud and bank fraud related charges. I said I'm 100% guilty of them all.
Oh my God.
And then I said, I was recently released. I'd love to talk to you about my story. And he was like, "Bro, that opening, he goes,
that's very powerful."
It was great. So he called me, and so he gets me to come on the program, on the podcast. I kept putting it off because I didn't even understand how YouTube worked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
sure.
I made the mistake of buying an Android. It keeps fucking freezing up on me. Like, I don't know how to work it.
Right.
So, but eventually I get out of the halfway house, and he asked me to come on, and I come on, and I tell the story. Takes about 2 hours, and I remember after the story, I'm driving this piece of shit vehicle, and I'm like, "Listen, man," I'm like, I said, "I don't even know how I'll make it across the bridge. You got to buy me lunch. I may be walking across the bridge. Like, I have no money, and this vehicle is a piece of garbage." So we go to Waffle House, and we're eating. He goes, "Listen," he said, "You want to start a podcast?" And I'm like, "Right." He goes, "Listen," he said, I can't tell whether this story is going to be great." He's about, "The story you just told me is amazing." He said, "And I think it's going to be big." He said, "I think it's going to do really well." He said, "You need to start a podcast now." And I was like, how? And I go, I don't have any equipment. I don't have anything. He's like, oh, you got a phone? I was like, a phone? And I had an iPhone by then. And he goes, yeah, it's an iPhone. It's got a good camera. I'm not starting a fucking podcast with an iPhone. Like, and here's what always cracks me up. I'm living in a rooming house. And I'm telling the guy who's making a living doing what I want to do, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, how fucking arrogant of a prick are you?
Right.
And so I always say, he told me, he said, put it up, just start putting out videos on your fucking channel. That way if this blows up, you'll get a ton of subscribers and then you can buy better equipment. He gave me, I would say, the best piece of advice that I 100% ignored. And we would have 2 million fucking subs right now. Yeah. If I had listened to him. I didn't listen to him for another 6 months. I went on like 5 or 6 more podcasts. All of them, that podcast, by the way, got like 2.3 million. The next one's 2 million. Next one, 2.8 million. Next one's didn't have anywhere to go. I had a couple thousand subscribers on my YouTube account, not one video. These guys don't even know if it's me. I don't even have a photo. It just says Matt Cox.
Oh my God.
And they're just subscribing. And so Danny, one day he saw it. He said, "The fuck are you doing? What are you fucking doing?"
Yeah, he's hit the sweet spot.
And look, and here's the thing about what I admire about Danny is that, listen, he did it for nothing for years, just because he loves it.
He's quite good at it.
No, he's good at it too. You can be good.
He loves it.
You can be amazing. You can be amazingly talented at something and still fail.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, it happens every day.
Right. But I think that what I love about it is that he did it. He did it, and he wasn't making money. He did it simply because he loved doing it, and that's pretty impressive. And that's inspiring that paid off.
He was the first big podcast that I went on. I'm going to say it was 2019, just before COVID started. And I've been on, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, I guess, over the years. But then that led to Julian Dory, and then to Tucker Carlson and Patrick Bet-David and Sean Ryan and Rogan finally last year, and then Diary of a CEO, which really broke me out. So one led to the other, to the other, to the other, and it's all worked out.
It's funny, Bustamante. So Bustamante, I had written a book, and I needed to kind of fluff it up, right? So I knew a guy that said he knew some former CIA guys, and I said, "Do you know one that would talk to me?" He was like, "Oh, I got this one guy. He just started a podcast, which was his podcast." Oh, okay. So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to him." I said, "Could I send you some questions that you can read, some paragraphs or pages you could read, and then you could comment on them?" He could show, yeah, sure. So I sent him to him. It was a book about a guy that was locked up. But it's kind of an international thing, and it's all true. These are true stories, true crime. So he wrote the whole thing, and we talked on the phone several times. We emailed a bunch, and then I was like, "Hey, look, I know a guy who owns a podcast," and Bustamante lived close, and I said, I could probably get you on the podcast. He goes, "Oh my God, that would be great. That would be so wow. Thank you so much. That would be amazing." He's like, "I just started my podcast. Like, it's not doing, he's like, it's doing okay, and he's like, "Yeah, I would love that. I really need some exposure." He hadn't been on anything.
Wow.
And so I called Danny. I said, "Danny, I got this guy. He's former CIA. He just helped me with this book, and he let me interview him, and I interview a few people." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, no doubt." I said, "Right down the street. Here's his number." He goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "You should have him on." Okay. Fucking 2 weeks later, Bustamante texted me and says, "Hey man, your guy never called me." And I was like, "Really?" Okay, I called Danny. He's like, "Okay, who is it again?" The guy's name's Andrew Bustamante. He's right down the street from you. Okay. 2 weeks later, Andrew goes, same thing. Wow. Same thing. "Hey, man, I haven't heard from this guy." I call him Danny up. Same thing. He's like, "Okay, do you even know that this guy was in the CIA?" I said, "Look, he was in the fucking CIA. Who's going to fucking lie about that? Come on, he's in the CIA.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I probably would be. But, and he goes, okay. And he says, yeah. And then like a week later, 2 weeks later, Danny said, "Listen, man," he said, "I had 2 guests fall off. I have nothing. I need you to come and do a podcast. Can you come tomorrow and do a podcast?" And I go, "What about Bustamante?" He goes, "Who?" I go, "Motherfucker." I said, he's fucking 15 minutes from you. What are you? I know it's probably an hour. But what are you? He's like, "Who?" I go, "Fuck, at least call the fucking guy." Oh, I'll call him. So he calls him. Bustamante goes on. And I mean, has blown up ever since then. Mm-hmm. Blown up. I mean, just that
He's
was
on like 3 different TV shows.
Oh, it's insane. And never says anything. No. I mean,
he takes a lot of shit. He and I debated each other.
I know. I thought that was great.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, Alan Dershowitz called me the next day.
Oh, that's funny.
And he said, "You gave that kid a masterclass in the Constitution." I said, "I don't understand Bustamante. He's like an apologist for the CIA."
Yeah, they've never done anything wrong.
No, never.
They've never done anything wrong.
Never.
It's the part, and that's why it's funny because like Julian and Danny said they'll be like, I think he's still CIA. I think it's a psyop. I think he's out there.
Stranger things have happened. Yeah. I'll tell you another story too. You know what? To be on the safe side, maybe I should.
You don't have another 30 months in you?
I'll tell you a different one. The first thing that CIA people ask each other when they meet up for the first time is, what directorate were you in? Mm-hmm. Okay, there are 4 answers. DO, DI, DS&T, DA. Directorate of Operations, Directorate of Intelligence, Directorate of Science and Technology, Directorate of Administration. Okay, that's it. 4 answers. Mm-hmm. The inevitable second question is, what division were you in? And there are about 3 dozen. It could be Near East operations, Africa operations, counterterrorism, counterproliferation, whatever. So I'm a regular on Fox News. And Tucker Carlson and I became good friends well before COVID. Around 2015, I started going on his show regularly on Fox. I'm always the only person there because most people are either in the New York studio or they're remote. So I'm always the only one in the green room and then the only one in the studio. And he was doing the show from Washington. So I go in the green room one day and there's this guy there. Looks to be about 5 years older than I am. And I said, "Hello." He says, "Hey, how are you?" I sit down. He said, You're gonna go on Tucker?" I said, "Yeah, I'm on at 8:20. He said, "Oh, I'm on at 8:35. And he says, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Oh, CIA stuff." And he said, "Oh, you're CIA?" And I said, "Yeah, former CIA. You?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm former CIA too." And I said, "What directorate were you in?" And he said, "I was in ops." Okay. That's not the way we would normally say it. You'd say I was in the DO.
Right.
But maybe he was a contractor, I thought. Maybe he was in just for a year and he just didn't pick up on the lingo. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I said, "What division were you in?" And he says, "I did black ops, I did wet work, I did all that shit."
Like nobody's going to say all that. This is not right.
Not even in friggin' Hollywood would somebody say something so stupid and ill-informed. Black ops and wet work and all that shit. Okay. So I go into the studio. We're on commercial. And I said, "Tucker, I got to tell you, this guy that's in the green room that's coming on after me, I think he's a fake." And he said, "Oh, shit. Are you kidding me?" He said, "Why?" I said, "He doesn't know the lingo. And when I ask him the most basic questions, he just doesn't know the answers." And he goes, "Okay, well, I'm committed. He's on in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. 6 months later, I see this guy on the front page of the Washington Post. He's been arrested and charged with mortgage fraud. So he bought a house in Annapolis, Maryland, which is very nice and very expensive. And they said, "Okay, you're applying for this mortgage. We need 6 months of bank statements." He's like, "No can do. Deep cover, CIA, wet work, black ops, top secret." And they're like, "Oh, okay. We'll just give you the $1 million."
Yeah, come on.
So they give him the $1 million, and he can't make any payments because he's never worked for the CIA or CIA adjacent or anything. He just made the whole thing up. And so they have to foreclose on the house, and then they grab him and charge him with mortgage fraud. Like, how do people, especially people in the Washington area, fall for something like that? When I left the agency, I went to work for Deloitte & Touche. I was the deputy director of the competitive intelligence practice. Very boring, but the same skills that that I learned at the agency. So we're spying on Ernst & Young, KPMG, IBM, stealing their pricing models and stuff like that. So because we're based in McLean, Virginia, and the CIA's in McLean, Virginia, we get like dozens, hundreds even, of applicants who claim CIA employment. So the managing partner called me one day and said, you would do me a great favor if you would just take every one of these applicants who claim CIA background to dinner and vet them for me. I said, sure. So the very first one, he's this young kid in his late 20s, and I take him to dinner, and I said, so what directorate were you in? And he goes, I was DI and DO. And I said, wrong answer. And he goes, well, I said, what directorate were you really in? And he said, well, I'm an analyst. I'm in the DI. I said, then why would you say you're in the DO? Well, I do some work for the DO. I said, we all did work for the DO, but you can't say that you're in the DO. And I said, what division were you in? He said, CTC. I was running Middle Eastern operations. And I said, really? Now that's fascinating because I was in CTC and I was running Middle Eastern operations and I never heard of you. And he goes, I'm not going to get this job, am I? And I said, no. I don't even think we ordered.
Yeah,
this
is an uncomfortable dinner at this point.
Yeah. He just fell apart. But we would get people like this all the time. All the time. In the military, it's stolen valor.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing, but so many people are undercover that it's that much harder to prove that they weren't in the agency. For me, it's always about the lingo. You either know it or you don't. And so help me God, if anybody ever says to me, I was in the company.
Yeah.
You're going to get a punch in the face because nobody ever says the company under any circumstances.
So I have a prison story that's similar. Colby's heard this, so you'll appreciate this. First of all, it bothers me that when the CHOs come in and they're asked what they're there for, obviously they don't say I'm a CHO.
No.
What they say is, they always say fraud. Like, for God's sakes, why do you have to pick my industry?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on. Like,
exactly.
And so
paperwork, please.
Yeah. So these guys would come in, and of course, initially they don't have paperwork. They come in, so they're there. They get assigned a cube.
Right.
Did you have cubes at the low?
Yeah, we had cubes.
Yeah, they weren't cells with doors and everything.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it depended on which unit you were in. Mine was in Central 1. It was the only one that was new. It wasn't original to the prison. So we had cubes.
Right.
Others had cells.
Okay. Like Coleman was all built at the same time. So they were all cute. Like the low.
See, ours was a Catholic monastery.
Oh, really?
And they just put heavy steel prison doors on.
Jeesh.
Yeah.
So guys would come in, they'd get their assigned cube, and then if it's a white guy, which almost all the CHOs are white. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just true.
It's true.
And so the white guy was named Kenny King. Kenny King would walk over to the guy and say, "What you? Hey, so what are you here for?" And they of course the guy say, "Oh, I'm here for fraud," and he go, "Oh, okay," and then they go over to me and he go, Cox, and I go, "Yeah, what's up?" And he go, "This guy says he's here for fraud. Go talk to him." And I go, "God, I don't want to go fucking talk to him."
You gotta vet the fraud.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. I'm sure he's here for fraud. He's a little soft white guy. I'm sure. No, go talk to him. He don't look right to me. He don't look right. He don't. And I go, fuck.
The big Chomo glasses.
Yeah, of course, the Cho 2000s. Right. And so I'd walk over and I go, "Hey, man, you're here." And this is one specific guy because it just always kills me. So Kenny walks with me. He's right up here with me. And he goes, "Hey," he said, I said, "So I hear you're here for fraud." He's like, yeah, I'm here for fraud. I went, "Oh, okay." I said, "Me too. I'm here for bank fraud." I said, "What kind of fraud were you here?" He goes, "Credit card fraud." And I went, "Credit card fraud?" I said, "Was that the charge? Credit card fraud?" "Yeah, it was credit card fraud." And there's no such thing as charge.
No,
as credit card
it could
fraud.
be wire fraud.
Yeah, well, it could be wire fraud. It could be access device fraud.
Sure.
It could be bank fraud. It could be it could be financial institution fraud. Like, there's lots of it, but there's no credit card fraud. So I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so already I'm thinking, And I go, "Well, what were you doing?" He's like, "Well, I was charging lots of people a small amounts on their credit cards, and then I was getting paid. That's how I was making my money. And I went, well, I understand. Did you work for a financial institution? Like, how'd you have access to people's credit cards to charge them? Like, I don't understand how. He's like, well, I said, did you work at a bank? Did you, well, he goes, it's not a learning experience. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. And I went,
oh, wrong answer.
And I know. I looked at him. Oh, okay. I go, he's a Cho. And Kenny goes, bingo. I fucking knew it. And I turned around. I just walked off. And Kenny came up to me he and a couple of guys came up to me a little bit later, and they go, how did you know he was a Cho that fast? I said, listen. Your gut. I said, first of all, the charge is wrong. I said, which, okay, that's fine. I get it. I said, like, I'll tell people I'm here for, what are you here for? Oh, mortgage fraud. I said, it's really bank fraud. There's no mortgage fraud. It's bank fraud. But I said, whatever. I said, and then when I asked him was a charge, he said, no, that is the charge. I was like, okay, that's not true. I said, but then the second thing when I asked him what he was doing, he didn't know the lingo. Mm-hmm. I said, and thirdly, I said, he shut it down right away. I said, Kenny, I said, I've never met a fraudster
that didn't want to talk about it.
Didn't want to brag.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know if, and Kenny, we'd been locked up 4 or 5 years at this point. I said, Kenny, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but if you asked me to describe what I did, I said, you can't shut me up. I said, I get excited about it. It's thrilling to me. I love it. I get energized. I said, I don't get energized about anything else. I said, but it's in my bones. I love it. I said, it's the narcissism of being a fraudster that you have to brag. I said, which is also how most of these guys get caught. I said, he shut it down. He didn't want to talk about it. I said, come on, man, this guy's a Cho. He's a Cho. And listen, I mean, there's a bunch of other ones where he'd be like, sure. same thing over, but sure. It's the same thing. Like what is a fisherman knows a fisherman, right?
Exactly right. So I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff right now.
Right.
I've got 3 podcasts. One to my great surprise, it's on Apple Podcasts. It's called John Kiriakou's Dead Drop. We're actually number 98 in the world, among 2 million podcasts, and it's just me telling stories. I've got one every day on YouTube and Rumble called Deprogram. It's just about the news of the day. And then I have another one on YouTube called Deep Focus, where it's more in-depth interviews with people like professors and attorneys and activists and, experts on different issues. I've got a website, johnkiriakou.com. And if you want something more fun, I'm on Cameo, John Kiriakou. Can barely keep up with it. I got my 8th book coming out in a couple of weeks, my 9th book by the end of the year. I decided to do something completely different, but everything's available on Amazon. My first 7 books were about the CIA, and I decided to do one called Remains of the Day, a definitive guide to Washington, D.C.'s historic cemeteries. And the publisher liked it so much, they commissioned 4 more. So I've got one called... well, I forget what it's called now. I don't pick the titles. They pick the titles. But anyway, it is it's a definitive guide to the mafia graves of New York City. And then I've got one coming out on Chicago, one on the country western graves of Nashville, and one on America's serial killers.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, we're going to leave all of John's links in the description box. So you can go there, click on them, follow him, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching the show. And if you know anybody who'd be interested, please share it, subscribe. Thank you. See ya.